welcome to the smooth sensation of the afternoon Discourse Dojo. Today, we're going to be talking about the year 2014. I'm your host. Hey! I didn't even get to say my name yet.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to be funny. Please start again.
No, you're very funny. I'm Ninjustin, and that's Jarenth. And, this is the Discourse Dojo.
You can start again if you want.
I'm sorry. Fuck you. This is what we're doing it. No, we're just doing
it. I just wanted to express my dislike for 2014.
Yeah. 2014 was a pretty stupid year. Let's all be honest. There were some good games in it, but there's also other things. I don't think any 2014 video gaming wrap-up post or talk or anything would be complete without acknowledging a certain hashtag.
Fuck that certain hashtag too, in particular.
Yeah. So we want to talk about games. We're not going to talk about weird community conflict and stuff, but I guess we should just make it clear from the start that Gamergate is dumb and extremely toxic, and we haven't really talked about it so far this year because we want to stick to games. And
also because we're giant cowards, and we prefer to not be targeted by them.
We don't want to talk about it, but I guess eventually we need to say something. So yeah.
Gamergate is stupid and toxic and hateful, and we hope it stays in 2014 where it belongs. And now let's talk about games.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people are going to remember 2014 as a year of, like, stupid disappointments and, like, shitty unfinished releases.
Fitting for the theme.
Yeah, I think that a lot of, like we've been seeing a pretty big variety of, like, Game of the Year 2014 games, you know? Like, normally there's, like, a few big ones like Skyrim and whatever. But this year it's been a lot of other stuff, and I think part of that is because the stuff that we were expecting to be huge hits just ended up being either just completely unmitigatedly, like, just insulting. I don't know if unmitigatedly is a word, but whatever. Just
it is now.
Unmitigated disasters like Assassin's Creed Unity, and
Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yes,
it's worth mentioning twice.
Yeah, or just completely disappointing and just not worth really talking about much, like Elder Scrolls Online and Watch Dogs, and I've heard mixed things about Destiny, but the general consensus is whether it's fun or not, it is definitely not the next big thing.
So yeah, almost everyone and their dog does the picks for 2014 or the best games for 2014, so we figured we'd try something different, and instead we want to talk about the games we played in 2014, not necessarily released in 2014, that shaped the year for us the most.
Yeah.
So do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, sure. And I guess if I were to bring up the game that I played the most in 2014, since we don't have to be talking about 2014 games, I would have to go with Payday 2. I think...
Yeah, you've been playing that a lot.
Yeah. And I think I got it. Either I bought it for like $5 or somebody gifted it to me or whatever last year, but like I played it a little bit and was just sort of confused and baffled by the weirdness of it. And it took until months and months later for me to end up, like, finding friends who play it regularly, and then they got me into it. I have to thank my internet friend McNutcase. Shout out if you're listening to this. I don't know if you listen to this, but
let us know in the comments if you listen to this. Nudge, nudge, yeah. Wink, wink.
Or more likely on Twitter, but whatever.
That works too.
The point
Twitter is a kind of comment.
Payday 2 is very much a game that is like that. It has a learning curve, and it's not a learning curve that you will likely get up and over on your own. You basically have to have friends like walk you through it. and just be like, okay, so this is how the weird-ass stealth system in this game works. And, like, you know, this is what you have to be aware of. Oh, that enemy is a such and such. He'll kill you instantly because this game is kind of bullshit, but also fun.
I've heard that, yeah. If you play it alone, it's bullshit, and if you play it with random people, you get booted from your match because you don't do everything super perfectly. And everyone who plays Payday 2 at this point figures that you either do things perfectly or you're intentionally trolling.
Yeah. Or you'll just sit there forever in the lobby because there's no, like, vote to start thing, and the host went AFK without telling anybody, and you're just, like, sitting in the lobby. While somebody in the lobby is going, who's going to bring a saw? I don't have a saw. We need a saw. Is
who's
anybody
going to play
support? Yeah. But if you play it with friends, and you find friends that are decently competent, then it can actually be many hours of fun. I think I logged over 100 hours into it last year, and that is very rare.
That is impressive.
Yeah, like, I'm not the kind of person who will dwell on one game generally, even if it's a game I really like. Mark of the Ninja, I've often cited it as, like, my favorite game ever, you know, since 2012 when it came out on PC, and, like, I love it to death, and for the longest time, I hadn't logged more than 20 hours on it. Just because
it's a story game, and once you're done, you're done.
I don't really, like, replay content and stuff like that often. So with Payday 2, it's just like my friends and I would play it together, and it doesn't have as much infinite replayability as, like, Left 4 Dead, but it has quite a bit. And it's the kind of thing where, like, you can play loud, you can play stealthy, you can, like, build your character in a variety of ways. And like I said, it's kind of bullshit sometimes, but if you can figure out the ins and outs of it, then it's got some definite playability there.
Alright, that actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and they're also constantly releasing more content with it. They finally released the first female heister in the game. And we had to pay money for her, which was stupid. But, you know, whatever.
Well, I mean, a game about robbing, it makes sense that they'd nickel and dime you with DLC. I can get that.
I never thought of it that way.
I got severely burned on Payday 1 because Payday 1 was even more bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I never really got into Payday 2. Like, I didn't give it a fair shake. But I keep hearing that it's fun.
It makes sense.
So I actually bought it during the last Steam sale, or the Steam sale before that. And I may actually play it in the future if I get good friends that are willing to understand that I occasionally fuck things up. And occasionally these will actually be unintentional fuck-ups.
Well, that's not me. Fuck you and your noob ways.
Thank you. I love you too.
Mm-hmm.
So while we're talking about games with steep learning curves that you really need to bring a friend to, the game that for me shaped the most of 2014, that shaped 2014 the most, has to be Divinity Original Sin, which I played with my friend Des in co-op.
Yeah,
Summer from the launch.
I was gonna say, I've gotten a decent amount of entertainment value just from seeing you and Dez's tweets about it.
We've been playing Divinity Original Sin ever since the launch, which was in... Let me look it up. Why didn't I look this up? The end of June 2014. And we finished it 2 days before Christmas in a 9.5-hour marathon session where we glitched out the final boss, beat the final fight in an incredibly dumb way, still had to do it twice because the difficulty curve sort of becomes a wall near the end. And then in a cutscene, our agency was stolen, our victory was claimed by an NPC, and we were kicked out of heaven. And then we were turned into goblins. In sequel bait. And I've already said a lot about Divinity Original Sin on Twitter, and I actually kind of intend to write something about it because it's a game that I could probably do a whole podcast on and then some. Maybe that's actually what we should do, just talk about it. But for now, it's a game that's bad and poorly designed and stupid, and also incredibly freeform, and it has good combat. And if you are playing it with a friend and you're willing to take the game for what it is instead of what it presents itself to be, and you're willing to experiment, and you're willing to understand that sometimes it's going to be incredibly dumb for no good reason, then it's incomparable. Let's put it like that. I don't think I've ever played a game that had similar experiences to Divinity Original Sin.
That sounds a lot like my experience with Payday 2. Like, your description of it.
Mm-hmm, I get that. It's a game where, for several incredibly difficult boss fights, we just had to either super prepare or, like, glitch it out, cheat it. There's a section near the end of the game where you meet with the witch that you've been chasing for the entire game. And the story's set up so that you can make her bond with her sister and find the wizard that was dating both of them, and it's incredibly dumb. And it's set up so that it looks like you can sort of turn her back good. Except Des and I killed her sister, which is a friendly NPC, and you're not supposed to kill her, but simultaneously Divinity Original Sin lets you do that. So we killed her because we didn't like her. And then we killed the wizard. And then we also killed the imp at the end of time who was giving us quests. He got better. He didn't actually care much about it. So she was going to be an enemy. But when you get to that final fight, you're talking to like the real final boss, and she's standing there, and she and her invulnerable Death Knights are friendly. Like, they have friendly AI. Because if they didn't have friendly AI, the battle would start as soon as you get within sight range.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to have like a big epic final confrontation.
Yeah, but it's a game where you play with between 2 and 4 people. You always have 2 characters in your party, and when one person is locked in conversation, the other ones aren't. So what you can do is walk around with these other people and cast spells and do summons and dispel the Death Knight's temporary invulnerability, and you can even attack the characters that are not in conversation either.
Wait, isn't it like a turn-based party type thing?
It's turn-based when you're in combat, but it's otherwise it's like walking around in real time, like most of these games are.
That's so weird.
And then when you attack one of the invulnerable Death Knights or the witch that you've been chasing around, their friendly AI is set to City Guard. So you attack them, and they look at you and they go, "Oi, that's not nice," and then they turn back around. And the damage they take just stays there. And then you hit them again, and they go, "Oi, that's still not very nice. Be careful where you put that thing." And you can hit them like 3 or 4 times that way before they go aggro, which is how City Guards work.
Which is kind of nice.
So what we did is, one of our wizards had an incredibly powerful spell called Death Punch, which is just a short-range punching nuke. It has a long cooldown, but that doesn't matter if the fight hasn't started. So we punched all of the enemies until like a sliver of death. Then we punched one of them to death, which finally aggroed the other 2, but not the final boss, who was still locked in conversation. Then we killed the other 2 enemies, and then we triggered the final fight, which included the final boss just standing there looking around going, "Wait a minute. Didn't I have allies?" And then looking to the side and seeing them death punch and going, "Oh, I guess I should have been paying more attention." Well,
that's amazing.
And then you defeat the final boss, and then it turns out there's a second final boss, and you don't get to heal up. And the final boss is just a hour and a half slog of throwing status effects at it and hoping they stick. It's everything that's good and bad about Divinity Original Sin in one neat package. And it's not nearly 5% of what I could be talking about if I gave the opportunity to just ramble about this game. But it's definitely, if you have a very close friend that you wouldn't mind like spending 6 months of your life getting through this incredibly large, stupid, silly, entertaining RPG, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I don't think there's any other game I've played this year that's even come close to like occupying my thoughts this much.
Huh. Yeah. It's, I don't know. The whole play it with friends thing is where like game criticism becomes kind of bizarre because like, you know, when I spend a ton of time playing a game, that often means like, oh well, that, you know, they must have been doing something right. But I've noticed that when it's a play it with friends thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that. That's actually what I wanted to say about a game that we played a lot in 2014, even though it didn't come out in 2014, which was Dark Souls.
I knew that was coming.
Oh, yeah. What else would it be? Like, Dark Souls is a really frustrating game to me because everybody talks about it like it's this amazing instant classic, and I enjoyed some things about it, but I don't know if I would call it a good game. And like, I could open up my Steam most played list and Dark Souls would be like in the top 5 or something because I spent over 100 hours playing it. But the thing is, it's a perfect example of the fact that doesn't necessarily mean quality, because the reason it took me 100-something hours in Dark Souls is because when you play it with friends, you have to do every single section 3 times. So that you can get each person through it. When you kill a boss, it only gives you credit for the one guy whose, like, world you're in. The other 2 people are ghosts, and they get XP, but they don't get credit. And so it takes a million years. And I don't know. I enjoyed the game to a degree, and I got pretty far in solo as well, although I played as a sorcerer, which a lot of Dark Souls fans will scorn as, like, easy mode.
Because if there's anything, the worst part about Dark Souls is Dark Souls fans. Easily.
It's like, I enjoyed it to some degree, but I disagree with a lot of the praise that's given to it. Stuff like, it's hard but fair, and like, it's... I don't know.
If you just learn the systems, then every time you die, it's your fault instead of stupid bullshit.
If you have the foreknowledge by repeating content over and over to learn where the traps are, or by reading 50 player written messages because one of those 50 will say the information you need to know, then you're good.
If the player messages aren't all lies, or nice just ahead, or praise the sun.
Yeah. Praise the sun. And like, you know, try jumping next to every single endless pit ever.
Ever.
Yeah. And, you know, I think there are occasional drops that actually lead to something if you jump down. Like, there's a treasure chest there, but it's like, the only way you'll know is if you look at the wiki, or if you read every single one of those, and try every single one of those. And, you know, just get over all those deaths that happen to you, because who gives a shit? Clearly, we have all the time in the world to play Dark Souls.
I mean, we did play it for 100 hours, and we didn't even complete it.
Yeah, we got to the end and we didn't complete it.
We should probably play it at some point, because I do want to complete it.
Some of that obnoxiousness was also mitigated because we were playing with our friend Josh, who, like, knows the game already really well. He was like, alright guys, you're supposed to go here, and then we do exactly the opposite of what he was saying.
Guys, don't jump into the endless pit. Did you say jump into the endless pit?
That's what I heard.
Josh, why didn't you warn us?
Yeah. Oh man. Josh got a really good idea of my sense of direction from our
Justin, where are you? I don't know where I am. Well,
I'm at the elevator.
To go there.
He's like, dude, there's 3 elevators in this level.
So I played Dark Souls with you and Josh, and I also played Dark Souls 2 just with Josh, which was an interesting experience. Yep. Dark Souls 2 was an interesting experience because it was very clear that it was trying to be Dark Souls without entirely understanding why so many people praise Dark Souls, which makes it both a more accessible and survivable game, and also just, I don't know,
less engaging one.
Yeah, it feels like an imitation.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily bad, but it definitely feels that way. So of the two, I would really like to get back to Dark Souls with you and Josh at some point just to finish it.
Yeah,
we were at the final boss, and then we went to the DLC to do the DLC, because why not?
Yep.
Because we didn't have enough Dark Souls already. But if we ever actually beat Dark Souls, then we get to join the elite club of people who said they beat Dark Souls.
Yep.
And that is important to me.
Clearly. But yeah, so I'm kind of a negative Nancy when it comes to Dark Souls, even though I enjoyed it some. It's honestly, if it hadn't got so praised by everybody, I probably wouldn't think that much of it. I'd be like, oh, it's a really interesting combat system. I like that. I also don't like how generally bullshit it is. But it'd be kind of like if everybody talked about Payday 2 being like the best co-op game ever. If I played that and I would just be like, all right, guys, this is fun. I will agree with you there, but it's like the stealth system is really stupid, and like you can have fun with it if you know how to work it, but it's not very intuitive, and it's not like hard but fair. The cloaker comes out of nowhere and just kills you instantly, and you just have to deal with that. Sorry.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Sorry, I talked about Payday 2 again. But,
that's alright. It was your first game to talk about, so it's probably important to you.
Yeah, but I don't know, it's just...
And I do get you. I do feel like Dark Souls has been the victim of overhype for a long time. It is fun.
Yeah,
and
not even overhype from
that.
the publisher. Like, Assassin's Creed Unity suffered from overhype, and Watch Dogs suffered from overhype. But
that's manufactured overhype.
Yeah, exactly. In this case, it was like just tons of gamers who genuinely were really enthusiastic about Dark Souls, and that made me a lot more interested than Ubisoft talking about Watch Dogs and calling it iconic before it was even out.
Get Aiden Pierce's iconic cap. He wears a cap.
It's a baseball
yes, he
cap.
wears a cap.
It's a fucking baseball cap.
Oh,
guys,
I really hope that.
but it's iconic.
I really hope that Robert Florence doesn't get to hear this podcast because he is one of those Dark Souls fans, and I respect him a great deal, but I disagree about how he feels about Dark Souls. I don't know if you ever read his games column. I forgot what it was called. The one that he had to quit over Dorito Gate.
Oh, yeah.
But like almost every column, he had images of Dark Souls in there just to talk about how amazing it is.
Yeah.
And I often wonder if I just don't see it, or if they see something that's not there. I had fun with Dark Souls, and I'd like to go back.
Smart enough to get it.
Well, I mean, I'm literally a genius, so if I don't get it, it doesn't exist.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
No, it's an awful point. Ignore it.
Okay. But, I guess we're talking about other video games too, huh?
Yes.
I just now remembered that was
We're returning into two of those people who talk about Dark Souls at every opportunity.
Yeah.
Or Payday 2.
Apparently.
So on the other end of the scale, from games that were super overhyped and then we found them disappointing, I have Beyond Earth, Civilization Beyond Earth, which a lot of people thought was meh, and I had a great deal of fun with. Enough fun to start a whole Let's Play about it, which was partially because of that and also partially convenience.
Yeah, we hadn't done anything like that in a while.
Yeah, my last Let's Play was XCOM, and my first Let's Play was Warlock, which was very similar to Beyond Earth in a number of ways, mostly because it's also 4X.
Yeah.
It's actually only because it's 4X, but whatever. So I actually started playing Beyond Earth as a Let's Play. Like my very first outing into it, I immediately turned on the screenshots and just looked at what happened. And I'm thinking maybe that influenced my perception of it a little bit. But then I played it a second time without Let's Plays in mind, and I still had a lot of fun. I can see where a lot of the criticism is coming from because it really needed more meat on its gameplay bones. It's very sparse compared to Civilization 5, which it is more or less a direct descendant from, and very sparse compared to Alpha Centauri, which is its spiritual... What's the opposite? Precursor. Spiritual precursor. But for what it does, I actually like it a lot. It's exploring and colonizing a new planet, using the remnants and the cultures of old Earth, and then evolving from there. It looks pretty. I like playing it, and I think I would like playing it more if it had more than 5 victories, and if 4 of those 5 victories weren't a variation of the tech victory.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about it. I mean, I don't know. I haven't played it myself, and I've always had a passing interest in Civ, but this year I've sort of come to realize why I'm not terribly interested in the Civ games to begin with. But like actually,
why is that?
Basically, I don't like how it's built on the win states and how it's. Damn it! I don't want to be the guy who always brings up some other video every podcast and be like, just watch this. It says exactly what I want to say on the topic. But Campster's video on Civilization is actually really good because it's basically like Civilization presents itself as like you're creating your empire and it's like it's a celebration of everything mankind's done, but in reality, the way the mechanics are set up, it's like everything is done to arbitrarily be the best Civ out of all the Civs. And that works great as just like a board game type thing. But it doesn't like when I was super interested in Civ in the first place, I was expecting it to be this sort of like not necessarily freeform, but like this sort of open-ended-y like create a Civ game, you know, like Civ Simulator. Where it's like you can create a civilization in your own image, and whatever you do, there will be conflicts associated with that. But you know, it's almost sort of like SimCity-ish, or like
Democracy, maybe.
Yeah, I actually played Democracy 3 recently. Yeah, it kind of like that, but with more depth and not necessarily just modern countries.
Mm-hmm.
That would be really interesting to me, and that's sort of what I've always been like expecting and or hoping to get from Civ. And it's like playing Civ 5, I'm like, this is a pretty fun board game, although the games are too long for my taste. But it's not what I want from that idea.
Yeah, I gotcha. I played a lot of Civ as a kid, Civ 2 and Civ 3 and Civ 4 with my brother. So I'm more inured to the formula, and I just know what to expect.
I played some Civ 3 and Civ 4 growing up, but not that much, and the problem is that I only ever got to play it single player, so I didn't get that. I feel like as soon as I started playing Civ 5 with friends instead of single player, like the first time I finally actually beat Civ 5, like got to the end of a game, was when I played it with friends. Until then, I would get like bored halfway through.
Multiplayer Civ is really a different game. I played some multiplayer Civ 5 with Josh and friends, and there we just beat each other to death with horses before we even get out of the Dark Ages. Whereas the only game of Civ 5 I've ever played to completion was a Space Race Victory for not me. Because I wasn't playing very well and I didn't understand how Civ 5 differed from Civ 4.
Yeah.
But those are games I'm not talking about. What I am talking about is that I had a lot of fun with Beyond Earth. Which
that's right. Sorry.
Actually, bringing back what you said, Beyond Earth has a similar problem in that the ending states, none of them are really ending states that you would be happy about. Like, you either bring settlers over from Old Earth, or you go back to conquer Old Earth with an army of robots, or you merge with the planetary consciousness, or you find a signal of alien life and send the signal back, which finally proves once and for all that we're not alone in the universe, or you straight up kill everyone else. And 4 out of those 5 situations are not an ending. It's not that the story of your civilization stops there, and it's not that you feel that you've accomplished everything that you can accomplish, because the game just goes, okay, you're done. Good job. Yeah. Good job. You won.
It is like completely arbitrary, yeah.
And this is something that Alpha Centauri did a lot better, where... Sorry, I'll let you talk in a minute, but... in Alpha Centauri, you could win by conquering the global energy market, which made you like the only person capable of supplying energy to everyone else.
Oh, damn. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, that means you win. Like, in that case, your civilization has reached its end state because all other civilizations are subsumed in yours. Or you can win by merging with the planetary consciousness again, but then all other humans also follow you, and like the human race transcends to a new kind of existence. That's an end. With the Harmony victory in Beyond Earth, it just kind of like you and your people transcend, and it's not really like it's never really made clear what happens to the other civilizations in none of the endings except the military one.
Well, yeah, because all you get is like a title card. Right?
Yeah, it's awful. Some parts of it are really awful. The wonders are underwhelming in every respect. The victories are dumb, but the planets look really nice. I like the aliens. I like the unit design. I like the visual part of the 3 different affinities a lot, even though the affinities do mean that the factions that you play don't really factor into it all that much. Because it doesn't matter that you play Europe or Asia or Africa. It matters which affinity you follow. That determines everything. But I do like that some of the AI commanders seem to have some sort of personality. And I just had a lot of fun with it. I don't really know how to put it any way better. I played it twice, and I would probably play it again if I didn't get all 5 victory conditions in a single game the second time. Which is probably my fault more than anything, but I sort of
I remember the screenshots. You're like, hey, look at all these wonders right here.
I won in every single possible way. Look at me. I'm really good at this game. Now I don't have anything to do in it anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the almost inevitable expansions to Beyond Earth, because with every Civ game, the expansions are what make it better. So we'll see what they do with it. I think there's a lot of potential. I think it could be a lot better than it is, but I already think it is a very interesting game. Even if it is definitely lighter than Civilization V and less of an interesting exploration of the idea of space colonization than Alpha Centauri was.
You know what's interesting to me? I just thought of this. You said, like, with all the Civ games, the expansions are what make it better. And, like, I just thought of, like, that's kind of the logic that a lot of early access devs are using now, where they put out the game, and it's like, we're going to flesh it out with more content, and eventually it'll be this big thing that's really worthwhile. I wonder how perceptions would be different if from the start Civ was sort of viewed as like, like Civ 5 Beyond Earth was like the early access version of what we would eventually expect from Beyond Earth, because it's sort of the same logic.
It is, and it isn't, and it is. 2014 was definitely the year of early access, where we've talked about this before.
Yes.
In its own separate podcasts, our ideas about early access are very well defined, but there are a bunch of good early access games, a bunch of bad ones.
Yeah, I don't want to just end up restating everything from that, but it is kind of the logic of, like, the only thing separating early access from released is, like,
an arbitrary flag.
How much do you think is the game worthwhile right now?
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're releasing it in early access, it has to be worth something if you're charging money for it. That's why Clay didn't put Invisible Ink on early access until a certain point. But
so you want to talk about Invisible Ink?
I don't even know where to put Civ games on that then, because it's like it is a released game, but as you said, the expansions are what make it the really memorable big thing that we think of.
That is true.
I think like it was either George Weidman or Campster in their review of it who basically said like, it's not as memorable or as big as Civ 5, but it's probably about as big and as substantial as Civ 5 was when it first came out.
It's true. It is very much a more focused game. Whether or not that's good or bad is up to the individual listener, player. I kind of liked that in every game. In every large game, you meet every leader, and you can basically see everything. Because for me, that makes it feel more internally consistent, I guess.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, it's kind of silly.
But yeah, like in other Civ games, it has this weird arc where for like half the game, you never even meet any of the other players.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in Beyond Earth, it has a more like immediate sense of sort of conflict, or
in Beyond Earth, one thing that it does is you actually immediately see all the players as they land.
Yeah.
So you're in contact with everyone immediately.
Right. An immediate sense of connection, I guess. Whether that connection comes in the form of working together or in trying to fuck each other over. Although every game ends up being fucking each other over eventually.
Yeah, there's no diplomatic victory in Beyond Earth, and I really hope they add that as soon as possible.
Well, even like Civ 5 has a diplomatic victory, but it's not really diplomatic. As long as it's still, I am trying to win and make sure nobody wins but me, it's not really diplomacy. Like diplomacy in Civ 5 is basically like either bribing everyone or extorting everyone. And that's part of what I don't like about those games.
We should probably talk about that more in a separate podcast, I think.
I guess,
because we've been going for 40 minutes about this topic, so it's obvious you have something to say about it, and I could think about it too. I think it's just a consequence of victory-based game design.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad. But going back to the topic of early access, Did you play any early access games this year that you feel really shaped your opinion of it?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say Invisible Ink and Crypt of the Necrodancer, which we already talked about those in our early access episode, but I saw Anthony Birch tweet the other day saying, hey, have you been waiting for Invisible Ink to be, like, playable and fun and, like, substantial? You don't have to wait anymore. Like, it's now updated enough that it's worth your time. And he posted a link to it, and I was like, that's interesting. It's still labeled as early access, so I'm probably still going to wait until it's quote-unquote release. But apparently it's been getting really good updates. And I still think that even in its earliest state that I played, when it came out on early access on Steam, I still think it was worth playing. I still think it was pretty good, just definitely not complete.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about both Crypt of the Necrodancer and Sunless Sea.
Sunless Sea, that was the one you played.
Yeah. Which is actually nearing completion. I think they're going to release the full version in February of this year, and when that happens, I'll probably either do a review about it, or maybe even something of a Let's Play.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with it so far, and I can't wait to see what'll happen if you can actually go anywhere instead of just running into an empty patch of sea in the game and going, whoops, this content isn't here yet.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then my boat starving to death because I was really hoping I could buy food and fuel there.
Please pay no attention to this giant empty ocean. Yeah. That's hilarious.
It could use more giant empty ocean, to be honest, but that's something for a Sunless Sea specific review.
Yeah. I made a big list of like games I played in 2014 that I would like to talk about, and so many of these I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to write a post about that. And I just never did. Because I was probably too busy playing it. Like Invisible Ink. Well, that one it was because it wasn't released yet. But this year was kind of a year that I got more into like roguelikes or roguelike-ish games. I know that when I say roguelikes, and I'm not strictly referring to like top-down turn-based RPG things, I invite a whole bunch of people to say those aren't real roguelikes, but fuck you guys. Some people.
Do you think our audience would do that? They're all cool people.
Yeah, that's true, and we don't even get that many comments in the first place. So it's
they're all cool people.
Yeah, they're all cool people. We don't have a big enough following at this point that we invite a bunch of dicks to be dicks, which is nice. But like, the whole thing with roguelikes is that some people define the term as games that play just like Rogue, so only games like I guess like Dungeons of Dreadmore and. I guess Necrodancer would maybe count, arguably.
Well, I don't think Rogue had rhythmic movement to the beat, so probably not.
Probably not. It's a gradient, but
and I don't think Rogue had Diggles either. So I don't know if Crypt of the Necrodancer. I think only Rogue is the real roguelike, to be honest.
Yeah,
and even then,
I've said before, Windows Minesweeper is the classic roguelike in my heart. But no,
any specific examples?
I don't know. But I was going to say, like, some people define roguelikes like that, and some people, like me, define roguelikes as just games that have the unholy trinity of permanent death, gratuitous difficulty, and random level generation. So it's like, Diablo isn't a roguelike because, yeah, the levels are randomized to a degree, but it's not permanent death. You don't, it's not about, like, repeating it over and over and over so you can learn more about it.
Unless you play hardcore.
That is true, but don't do that. Just don't. But yeah, a couple of roguelikes I played this year was, like, Crypt of the Necrodancer and Heavy Bullets. I don't know if I ever talked to you about Heavy Bullets.
I played Heavy Bullets.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool. Did you write a thing about it? Because I don't remember you writing a thing about it.
Is it out yet? I played it when it was, like, a demo.
Heavy Bullets. I bought it on Steam, so I'm going to presume it's out. But I had a lot of fun with that.
Maybe it's early access.
I had a lot of fun with Heavy Bullets, and I hadn't had as much fun with other shooter roguelikes, which might make some turbo nerds foam at the mouth, me saying that phrase. But But because I'd played Paranautical Activity, which was a shooter roguelike that was on Steam until the developer threw a hissy fit, and then it got taken off.
And by through a hissy fit, you mean they threatened Gabe Newell?
Yeah, he said he was going to kill Gabe Newell, and I'm sure in his from his perspective, it was just a hissy fit. But he failed to recognize that Valve is a business that is based online, and if you say things like that while you are in a business arrangement with them, that will probably have, unfortunate consequences.
They may not want to have business with you anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, so Paranautical Activity, I didn't have much fun with that. I played it once or twice, and I was like, whatever. But Heavy Bullets, I actually played a lot. Not as much as, Spelunky, which I played last year and probably early this year, but it was really interesting. I liked the idea that bullets are, reusable. When you shoot an enemy, a bullet drops, and then you have to go up to it and pick it back up. So every time you find a few new bullets, that's, a really precious thing. It's
I remember.
I can fire more before I have to run to the thing I was shooting at to pick them up. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. I played Luftrausers, which is less roguelike-y and more arcade shootery, but it definitely has the gratuitous difficulty and randomization down. Did you play?
But it's not top down. I think I played some of the free.
No, Heavy Bullets is first-person shooter.
I know.
Oh, are you thinking of Teleglitch?
No, I was thinking of Heavy Bullets, but Luftrausers is also not top down.
Oh,
so how can it be a roguelike?
That's true. I hadn't thought of that. No, Luftrausers doesn't have the sense of progression that roguelikes have. So I wouldn't really call it that. It's just got some of those elements. And I actually played that while I was on my trip. It just whenever Val was in the bathroom or doing something, and Luftrausers, or as some people call it, Love Trousers, I guess. It's a really
Luftrausers.
Yeah, the correct pronunciation. But we're not all weird Europeans, Jareth. But it's a really good game for just burning a few minutes. Because one quote-unquote playthrough of it will only last 2 minutes maybe. You jump in as a plane and you fly around and shoot planes until another plane explodes you, and then you level up your stuff or whatever. It's almost it's the framework for it feels mobile-ish, like it would be an iOS game, except it's got super tight controls and is fun. Unlike a lot of mobile games.
Also boats.
Boats, yeah, that's right. You don't just shoot planes. You also shoot boats. You can shoot a blimp. A blimp eventually shows up. I've never killed it, though. It apparently has a lot of hit points.
It seems very easy to destroy a blimp with a machine gun.
You
but
would
whatever.
Think. You would think.
I would think, yeah.
Yeah. But, I don't know. What things do you want to talk about?
Well, it would also be remiss to talk about 2014 and not mention Code Simulator.
Oh, yeah. The classic.
Because in the spirit of 2014's early access focus, there was also the glut of games that started surfing on farm simulators, runaway YouTube success, like the jokey simulator games. You've all seen them.
Yeah.
And Code Simulator...
Surgeon Simulator might have been the first, successful... simulator-ish game, and I mean financially successful, not an indie dev made it and it made a bunch of people laugh. Surgeon Simulator, it was made as a joke, and then they were like, fuck, a lot of people really like this idea, maybe we should make it a game, and then they did that.
But for me, Code Simulator was really the apex of it. It was a game that unabashedly was made to be a stupid joke, but it also had production values and gameplay and a wide open world. And they're actually still supporting it. So it's both a dumb simulator joke and also quite a good game.
They made an MMO update. Now it's a GOAT MMO simulator. I still haven't played it. I've watched friends play it and I've watched YouTubers play it. I haven't played it myself. Just because if there's one criticism I'd have for it, the asking price is kind of absurd. It was like $15 at launch. It's like it's a funny joke, and it's got a bunch of neat little things in it that you can run around and run into, but I wouldn't call that worth $15.
It's interesting how the expectation of game prices has changed with Steam. Like, I remember a time when $15 would have been peanuts.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, the entire like AAA world. I basically never buy a major game at launch unless I know I'm going to play with friends. These days, like I bought Dark Souls 2 because I knew I would be playing it with you and Josh, and weirdly enough, I ended up not playing it with you guys very much. But yeah, like Borderlands 2, and I actually didn't buy the pre-sequel, but I will. That's like the only case that I do it, because for me, if it's more than like $5 or $10, then that's when I really start questioning, like, is this game really worth my time? And so $50 is just completely out of the question, unless it's a really important experience to me. That like it has to be multiplayer, because if I miss the game when it comes out, like I bought Portal 2 and I played it with a friend, and I would have missed out on that co-op experience if I hadn't bought it then. Whereas with a single player game, it's like there's no way that game is so good that I need to spend $50 or $60 to play it now.
Yeah, that is a fair assessment.
Not when I have literally dozens of Steam games that I know I will like and are in my library, and I haven't played them yet. I think
I get that.
The biggest one for me that this year was Transistor. Everybody's told me Transistor's good, and I know I'll like it because I love Bastion. It's a sci-fi game by the guys who made Transistor, including the writer, and it's like, it has to be good. Of course it's going to be good.
Transistor, a sci-fi game by the guys who made Transistor. Yeah, that's technically accurate. Yes, you did.
I meant Bastion. But yeah, I loved Bastion, and I love how Transistor looks. The like little bits of gameplay footage I've seen look awesome.
It is pretty good.
A ton of people recommended it to me. I
recommend it to you.
That it would likely be one of my Game of the Year choices when I play it, and I don't know, that might be why I haven't played it yet, despite it being in my library for months. It might be I'm looking at it and being like, I don't think I'm ready for this.
Why don't you install it right now?
It is installed. I literally just have to hit play.
Well, mouse over the icon, and the second we stop talking.
Okay. Yes. I will play Transistor, and it will be great.
Yes, you should totally do that. It's actually quite good.
But yeah, and that's how so many games are. Sorry,
I was going to say, for me, that same game is Shadowrun Dragonfall.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like the original Shadowrun Returns. I don't know why. A lot of people liked it, and I played it for a little while, and I was like, I don't really want to get back to this. But everything I've heard about Dragonfall, and I have the collector's edition even, means that it's so much better than the original Deadman Switch.
Yeah,
I hear a lot of recommendations.
We got into a little bit of an argument with Shadowrun Returns because you didn't like how the like party system worked, where you have to like hire people for individual missions instead of having like a party. I remember we got into kind of an argument about that because I liked that idea; it was interesting. But like, I think Dragonfall did away with that. I think you have an actual party in Dragonfall.
The reason I didn't like it, by the by, I've thought about this since then. It's not necessarily that I don't like that you have to hire people. But it makes sense in Shadowrun to hire Shadowrunners, but like it's you and then a whole bunch of random dickwads that you hire, and it would make a lot more sense if you were like the contact hiring the Shadowrunners instead of you also being a Shadowrunner.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
And B, if you don't have enough money to hire good runners for difficult missions, you're fucked. And if, like me, you spent that money on upgrades, expecting that you could spend money on upgrades, because why else would there be money and upgrades?
Yeah.
And then the game goes, by the way, this mission is quite hard. Did you save money for Shadowrunners? And I'm like, I did not. Oh, and the one party member you had, that one lady you start out with, she's gone. And then I could hire one dwarf and my own drones. And I may have been
rigger, weren't you?
Yeah, I started out as a decker, but that's even worse.
Well, the thing is, Deckers just suck in Shadowrun Returns. Which, by the way, another thing, I've heard Deckers are a lot more like actually useful in Shadowrun. But the other thing is that like Deckers like kind of suck, and Riggers are like expensive in that game.
They're also really powerful, so I wouldn't mind. But
that's true. But like with mages and stuff like that, you just get better. And with Riggers, it's like you have to keep sinking in money to have the latest drone or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like the drones, so I'll probably play a Rigger Decker in Dragonfall whenever I get to it.
And a bunch of like some of my friends that like that game said they always play as a Decker, Rigger, whatever. So it's probably more effective in that.
Because the robots are really cute.
Yeah.
But I didn't like that.
It's like, why would you play a cyberpunk game to be a dude what shoots people with a gun? You know?
Well,
like,
I mean, you can have a smart gun.
Yeah, that's true.
And a cybernetic arm.
I started the first Shadowrun Returns as a street samurai, and then I started over because I was like, what am I doing right now?
Why am I just smacking people with a sword?
Yeah.
Or is it shooting people with a gun?
Street samurais either, but I was Swordman McGee, and then I was like, this is stupid.
Did you finish Shadowrun regular?
No, I actually didn't finish either, but I think with Shadowrun Returns I got close to the end. I got to a point where there started being these weird monsters that kept coming back to life, and I just kind of was done. Oh wait, no, I remember why I quit Shadowrun Returns. There was a weird bug that they fixed, but by then I had stopped playing. But there was a bug that would make it where whenever you fired a gun, which I was a gun shoot person. Whenever you fired a gun, it would take like 2 minutes before the firing animation would register as over. So it would just make the gameplay. It would make a
mandatory super bullet time.
It was yeah. Well, no, it wasn't even like a super slow animation. You would just fire your gun and then stand there, and then like 2 minutes later, the damage would pop up, and then it would be the next person's turn. It was really bizarre,
it was
but that was
heavy bullets. Heavy Bullets Shadowrun version.
Exactly.
But yeah, that is Shadowrun is that game
Shadowrun
for me.
Returns, I played the first mission or two, and it was good. It's kind of interesting to me to compare that to Wasteland 2, because Wasteland 2, I did character creation and then quit, because just that amount of time in the game let me know that I was not in for a time I would very much enjoy. Like, I backed Wasteland 2 because you remember way back the first thing I ever wrote that got a bunch of views on my old blog was my retrospective on Fallout 1, where it was like I had never played it before. I tried it out and I fucking hated it.
I remember that.
Yeah, and that was the first thing that got like over 1,000 views. And I don't know, I was kind of hoping for a new game that would have that style of Fallout that I was interested in and would sort of tackle it with like modern sensibilities. And when I played Wasteland 2, I was like, no, this is just like Fallout on the Unity engine. Like, that's basically all it is. And for people who want that, I'm sure it works for them. I've seen a few positive reviews, but that's not what I want. And when with Shadowrun Returns, it felt more like a game that was a game that actually does the old school isometric RPG thing with modern sensibilities. And I liked it a lot for that. I never beat it, because who beats games these days? But I liked it.
I played some of Wasteland 2. I liked it a lot, especially the Ag Center storyline was fun. And then I got to a point where I was like, I'm gonna save the game and then come back tomorrow, and then I didn't. It saves to the cloud, so on my new PC I can actually pick it up at any moment. Yeah. And I should.
That's how Shadowrun is for me. And that's how
and I should.
So many games.
Instead, I've been playing what's basically a latecomer for me, which is Xenonauts. The modern day XCOM.
Oh yeah,
like,
I
don't remember
if it's more like XCOM than XCOM is. Like,
Xenonauts isn't so much like classic XCOM as that it is classic XCOM, just with other words and a shinier coat of paint. It's basically the same game.
It's like with Wasteland 2, that it's basically Fallout 2.5. Yeah, Xenonauts is XCOM. Whereas
but Xenonauts is even more like Xenonauts isn't. Wasteland 2 is a game that wants to be Fallout and succeeds fairly admirably and is relatively fun. Like by dressing the same clothes and doing the same things and then having a few unique things of its own. Xenonauts is a game that wears XCOM as a mask and tries to convince everyone that it's not wearing XCOM as a mask. And it's really confusing. Like, you have your basic gray aliens that you start out with, and your lizard-like aliens, and then you find the insectoid aliens that kill people and turn them into zombies. And then you find the flying aliens, and then you have the dangerous flying saucers, and the more dangerous flying saucers. And you start out with guns, and you go to laser weapons, and then you go to plasma weapons, and then you can have autopsies on aliens, or you can interrogate aliens if you capture them live, which you can do with knockout gas or stun sticks, and you build more bases, and it's XCOM.
Yeah.
It's also quite fun. Like, I've been playing it a lot the last few days specifically because I want to get through it. It does have that same bullshit that XCOM has. It's just more approachable.
Yeah. No, yeah, what I've heard when I said it's more like XCOM than XCOM is, I meant like it's in terms of how it plays, it's more like the classic XCOM.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, like the new XCOM really like modernized it in terms of the cover system and you know, just like how the combat works and stuff. And from what I've heard, Xenonauts it plays just like the XCOM you remember, which makes me interested because I think I might have tried playing the first XCOM and it turned out to be one of many, many old PC games that is just unplayable now.
Yeah, basically.
I actually just when Beyond Earth came out, I wasn't going to spend $50 on it, but I remembered that I think you or somebody else gifted me Alpha Centauri on like GOG. And I finally played it, and yeah, it's not very playable now, sadly.
I like Alpha Centauri still, but it's I played it a lot as a kid.
Like, the interface is clunky now, and like it's the visuals are really jagged. It's hard to tell what you're looking at sometimes based on like the tiles and stuff like that. And that combined with the fact that the terrain is much more complicated. There's like a whole elevation and humidity system or whatever. I was just like, I can't deal with this. I'm not going to deal with the whole system for elevation when I can barely even tell that what I'm looking at is land. But yeah, and there's a whole bunch of games like that. When the awful Dungeon Keeper Mobile came out, I think that was Jim Sterling's like worst game of 2014. Was the Dungeon Keeper reboot. When that came out, I was like, I'm going to try the first Dungeon Keeper, because GOG is giving it out for free. And then it turned out like, oh my god, if any game needs like an HD remastering, it's that, because you can barely even control in it now. Like the resolution is so small for it, and you can't change that it's like you can barely even click on things, much less tell what the things you're clicking on are. And that's really tragic, because we're probably never going to get that, because EA is apparently using the property for shitty mobile games.
That is too bad.
Yeah.
It does fit the theme of being evil, though.
Yeah, that's true. And
I can sort of get that.
It's even shittier than a lot of mobile games. I actually recently started playing a bunch of the popular mobile games, even though I knew I probably wouldn't like them. See, I don't play Transistor, even though I know I'll probably like it, but I do play fucking Clash of Clans, even though I know I'll probably hate it.
Did you hate it?
Behold, I did. It was, I mean, it's, if you've played any of those games, if you've played Farmville or Mafia or Heyday or like any of those style games, it's exactly that. It is spending resources to get more resources, and you have to wait 8 hours or spend real money to get those next upgrades that will let you get more resources to get more resources. And Dungeon Keeper Mobile was like that, except like with worse design.
Dumb.
It was worse. Like it didn't employ as effective of like, because Jim Sterling's term for this kind of thing is psychological warfare, and it sounds sensationalist, but it's basically the idea that like it's pitting your patience against your wallet. It's saying like, you know, you can do this and this and this, but you gotta wait 8 hours before you can do it. And it's like,
or you can give us money.
Yeah. And it's like those other games are generally more clever at disguising that, but Dungeon Keeper Mobile was just like completely transparently like, hey, you want to dig another square? Wait 16 hours. Or whatever. It was just like completely cynically designed. There was no, like, Clash of Clans has the framework of you're doing this like this weird sort of like PvP-ish combat thing, but in order to upgrade your base and upgrade your units and stuff, you have to build more shit. And with Dungeon Keeper Mobile, there isn't even that. It's just like, dig some tiles, but you gotta wait a fuck ton of time or spend a fuck ton of money.
The sad part is that if they build it as Dungeon Keeper Simulator, and then said that you have to wait 16 hours because that's how long it takes to dig out a 1 by 1 by 1 square foot of dirt, people would have loved it. Well, probably not loved it, but it
would have made more logical sense, I suppose.
They may have appreciated it more.
And by the way, there are a lot of games on the mobile market that are like that. I don't completely dismiss the mobile market like some people do, but good lord. Like, I played this game called SimCity Build It by EA, and it's basically...
That sounds great.
It's basically Farmville disguised as SimCity. And I haven't played the new SimCity, which I've heard was also sort of Farmville-ish, but I don't think it was to this degree. Because it is so... I was actually going to write a thing where I was pissed off about it because it gives you a little bit of sense of, like, role-playing or of creating the city you want when it lets you choose between building a wind farm and building, like, a coal power plant. And it says, like, the wind farm costs more for a bit less energy, but... You won't have to deal with pollution that way. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm against pollution in real life. I kind of like the idea of being able to build a city that is against pollution and being like, you know, I'll deal with the extra expenses. I'll do whatever I can because I want that to happen. But then later on, I didn't have enough power, and to build another wind farm would have taken a lot more money than I had, and there's no way to get extra money. Except by building your city bigger and bigger, which, by doing that, I would have even less and less power. Or by waiting for, like, several days, because the amount of money you get idling is extremely small. Or by spending real money. I could spend, like, $5 to get the amount of money I needed to build another wind farm.
Fun! And then when you upgrade your city, you need more of them.
Either just give up... and build a coal plant, or wait for an absurd amount of time just to get one more wind farm so I can make my city a bit bigger, or spend real money.
Or you just play another game.
Yeah, that was the point when I was just like, I have a better idea, uninstall. Because it's like, there's no, like, I get that you have to build systems in your game in order to, like... in order to get some sort of monetization from it when it's a free-to-play model. I get that. One thing that I'm unlike many other people who play mobile games is that I actually am willing to spend money, just not more than like $5 on a game. There are some games that I'll spend money on even if I don't feel like it's necessary, just because I like the game. I bought a little microtransaction in Plants vs. Zombies 2 just because I was like, I think this is a good game. But,
and for Jetpack Joyride too, right?
Yeah, that's right. I did that too. But with this, it's like there's nothing else to do but keep putting down more structures that require you to spend more money in order to build more structures. It's like that. I remember you reviewing that Indie Wonderland game Skyscraper Simulator, I think it was.
Yep.
Where all it is spending money to get more money, and on top of that, the game is hounding you for cash. And it's like, this is the predominantly successful model on the mobile market. It's so bizarre. And I guess I am still talking about games of 2014 by saying this, so I'm still on topic.
That's true. I also played a bunch of mobile games this year, more than I did otherwise, and I'm also not opposed to paying money for the good ones. Like, I very recently started playing Strata, which is a puzzle game that's not necessarily worth talking about, except that it's really cute and it looks good. But it has a free version and a paid-for version, and the free version gives you a full-page ad after every puzzle. And I did that for 3 puzzles, and then I was like, this is bullshit. Then I looked at the price, and it was $2, and I figured, why am I sitting through all this ad bullshit if I could give them the equivalent of half a Big Mac and be done with it?
Yeah, exactly.
I also played Hoplite, which is probably my favorite mobile game for this year. I wrote about it in one of my Indie Wonderlands, along with Crypt the Necrodancer and Divinity Original Sin, actually. I already wrote about Divinity Original Sin, I keep forgetting. And Out There, which I mentioned in the stream for New Year's, which I might also write about in the future, but probably. I have the screens for a review, so if I ever run out of things to talk about, I can write about Out There. Yeah, the mobile games more, and Star Realms, obviously, which is a card game which has an app that is also on mobile platforms. I've been playing it every day for the past 2 months or so. And when I say playing,
Hoplite. I mean, is Hoplite the like turn-based, hex-based?
Yeah,
RPG?
Hoplite is really fun.
Okay, cool. I think I'll look into that now because I've been looking for mobile games to play.
I very highly recommend Hoplite, and if you like card games, Star Realms is also pretty good.
I tend to not be a fan of. Is it like a collectible card game?
It's a deck building game.
Okay, because I don't tend to like those.
All right.
I don't know. I don't like I like competitive games to a degree, but like the analogy I like to use is StarCraft, where it's like at StarCraft you all start out on the same page when the level starts. And with a card building game, it's like so much of it is just setting up your deck before the fight happens, and I don't want to do that because it feels tedious to me because I want to get into the fight.
And that's not what a deck building game is.
Oh, what is a deck building game? I was thinking of like
deck building game is the term for games like Dominion, where like you start with a small set of cards or dice or whatever, and then the objective of the game is both to win in some way and to collect new cards to incorporate in your deck to make it easier to win. Oh. So in Star Realms, you start with like trade ships and combat ships, and the combat ships attack your opponent's hit points, which is how you win. But with the trade ships, you can buy other ships from a center row. And then those ships get incorporated into your deck, and later on you can draw those ships, and they have other abilities like trade and combat and hit points and other stuff. And it's basically this organic race of trying to get the best deck and also trying to parlay the cards that you randomly draw as effectively as possible.
That's interesting. Oh, that's the other thing I don't like about card game is the random drawing. And I totally understand why it makes those games work, but also I just tend to hate random number generators in games.
It's a little less disturbing in Star Realms because you start with a deck of 10 cards and you draw 5 cards a turn. So you cycle through your deck really quickly. So it's less that I got this card, I may actually get it before the game is over, and more that I got this card, so I'm definitely going to see it pop up in 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah, I guess that makes more sense.
So it's a lot of fun. Readers, listeners, if any of you play Star Realms, you should look up Gerent on Star Realms and challenge me, and it'll be fun. And then I'll beat all of you, because I'm super good at this game.
Yeah. I think the mobile game I played the most this year was Subway Surfers, which, it's like Temple Run and all of those, like auto-running games where you jump and slide and stuff, but it's more interesting. It adds a few innovations where it has like 2 floors in a sense, where there's on the ground and there's on top of the subway trains. And when you're on top, you're more safe because you're not going to get hit by a train immediately, but it's also hard to stay up there. And it's not that much to talk about, but like, Temple Run for me was always super boring because there's just absolutely one thing in that game, and that is don't get hit by the thing in front of you. No depth whatsoever, that is it. Just avoid the thing in front of you. And with Subway Surfer, there isn't much depth added on top. It's just like, it's beneficial to stay on top, but you might lose some coins on the ground or a power-up or whatever, and it's hard to stay up there. It's like, that's not much depth, but it's enough that it added like a sense of replayability for me. So it was just a thing I would play while like waiting on break or whatever.
I've seen this icon a lot, but I never actually downloaded it. Is it
Subway
fun?
Surf?
I said I've seen this icon on the Google Play Store a lot, but I've never actually downloaded it.
Yeah, it's not that much to talk about. It's just like everybody has their own lines for like how much depth will allow them to play a game repeatedly. And apparently Subway Surfer sort of hits that line for me. That was actually something I wanted to talk about with Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird, did that come out this year?
I think it was.
It's hard to remember all the things that came out in 2014 because we all know it is not much worth talking about this year.
No, it was 2013 apparently.
Okay. May
2013.
Okay. The new one by the same guy as the one that came out this year. Swing Copters, which is actually more interesting. But Flappy Bird kind of pissed me off because it's like it takes the helicopter game formula and just like sucks any depth out of it, because every time you do the flap it resets your like jump/fall acceleration, and I was like, why would you even play this then? It's literally just like reach that point at the bottom of each jump every time and you're fine forever. It's just really hard to get there. I don't know.
You make it sound like a lot of fun.
Did you ever play Flappy Bird?
I did not. I probably played one or two Flappy Bird clones because there were Flappy Bird clones everywhere.
Yeah, no, I didn't like Flappy Bird, and it wasn't even in like Android games are dumb and shallow and pointless. It was just like, this is dumber and shallower than most Android games.
I didn't really understand why people got so into it either, but it was probably a flow thing.
Yeah, probably. It's a thing you can repeat over and over to get your reflexes on it down. So I can sort of understand that.
So I think the last games of 2014 that I would like to talk about that
not necessarily shaped... We've been doing this a while, huh?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not necessarily influenced it for me a lot, but also it did a little bit, are the big MMO failures of this year. The Elder Scrolls Online and WildStar.
I had honestly forgotten that Elder Scrolls Online came out this year until you brought it up. I played a little bit of... That's just how woefully underwhelming that game is.
I played the Elder Scrolls Online in the beta, and I figured it was dumb. And then, like a week before it came out, they changed the whole single-player, like, starting experience, the tutorial experience, and part of the storyline. And it was even dumber. And that was it. I mean, it was a bad game, uninteresting, poorly set in the Elder Scrolls universe, and it was not the MMO related to the Elder Scrolls that anyone wanted. And I don't know if it's doing well. I'm assuming not, because I've never heard anyone talk about it, and it was incredibly expensive.
Well, the other problem is that it still hasn't come out on consoles. It's going to come out on consoles in 2015, and a lot of Elder Scrolls players are people that play it on consoles. But yeah, it's just like one thing that sums it up perfectly is that Elder Scrolls Online came out on the same week as Goat Simulator, and Goat Simulator was the bigger news. Like nobody, like people weren't talking about Elder Scrolls Online in its week of release because they were talking about Goat Simulator. And I think if I were to sum up 2014 in one sort of thing, it would be that.
It's entirely fair. 2014, the year that Goat Simulator was bigger news than the Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, the year that Goat Simulator beat ESO to like the like media coverage and the general discourse.
And correctly so.
Yeah. Wow. And WildStar came out, and WildStar was less underwhelming than ESO. I at least had some friends that were playing WildStar. But still not much talking about it. I actually enjoyed Firefall to a degree, but I understand why other people didn't. And yeah, just another underwhelming like MMO FPS. Woohoo! This one has a jetpack.
And then you played it for a while, and then
didn't ever again.
Yep.
I bought the starter pack thing because I was like, yeah, this is a really fun MMO. I could actually see myself like playing this regularly for a while, and then I played it for like a couple weeks. It came with a month of like subscriber status, and I stopped playing before that month was over. Same thing.
Well, that happens.
Yeah.
Maybe we can pick it up in 2015.
Maybe. Hopefully they'll have upgraded it enough by then. I don't know.
For our website.
Yeah, I made a Ninja Blues like clan in what's it called? Firefall, the game I was just talking about. and like a few people joined it, and I was like, cool. And then I played together with a few of them like once or twice, and then I never got on. Who knows? Maybe I have some invitations on it. I don't know. Maybe I have some people being like, I was gonna join your clan. Where'd you go?
Guys, I wanted to play cool video games.
So yeah, MMOs not a big thing anymore, it looks like. WoW is having its final thing.
I hear that WoW is doing pretty alright.
Yeah, I mean, of course it is. I don't know if it's the final expansion, but it really feels like it.
It feels like it should be.
It feels like the laziest form of... It's the laziest expansion they've had yet, because it's literally just, hey, all the characters in the Warcraft universe that we finally bothered to kill off, we're bringing them all back again.
How does that work? Time travel!
Yeah, time travel. To have like a WoW greatest hits. Like all the characters from like Warcraft 2 and 3 and like like we've been killing them off, and it feels like they ran out of lore to kill off. The Warcraft story is just kind of a sad one because it's pretty interesting lore and world building and stuff throughout Warcraft 1 and 2 and 3, and then when WoW came, it all froze solid so that the players could run around and kill every notable character in the universe. Because
one at a time.
Yeah, that's all you can do in a game like WoW. That's all you can have the player meaningfully do is kill things. So that's all they could do is and they saved some for the expansions, and then they burned off the expansions, like Burning Crusade. Oh yeah, you get to kill Illidan. Cool, I remember him. And then Wrath of the Lich King. Oh, we get to kill Arthas. That's awesome. He was like the big bad in Warcraft 3. And then Cataclysm, which whatever.
Deathwing. We get to kill Deathwing. He destroys worlds.
That's awesome.
It was really awesome.
Then after that, they were just out. And they were like,
how about pandas?
Yeah,
what can we kill?
Kung Fu Panda, the WoW expansion.
Kung Fu Panda, the WoW expansion, was what burned me out on it. I played every WoW expansion up to and including Mists of Pandaria, but I played Mists of Pandaria for a level and a half. And then while single-player leveling, I suddenly had a moment of, what the hell am I even doing? And then I quit. I hear that the new expansion is fun, but it's telling that Warlords of Draenor came with the character upgrade to level 90, so you could immediately start playing the expansion content.
Yeah.
Something that no other expansion has ever done.
There's actually a SWTOR expansion came out this year. It was like in November, I think. The
Hut Cartel one? Or?
No. The Hut Cartel came out last year, I think. No, here's the great thing. The new expansion to the Old Republic is completely ripe for like BioWare fan nostalgia bait and Star Wars fan, because the new expansion to the Old Republic is centered on Revan. I forget what it's called, but it's like Revan is back and he's doing a big thing, and it's all about that. And that is like perfect for all the Star Wars fans, all the KOTOR fans that just love Revan. I know because I have a few friends. I pre-ordered it because my friends pre-ordered it, and I was under the assumption that we were going to play through it together. And then none of us did because we were busy with like anything else.
Fun games that actually matter.
Yeah, and it's the fact that like we say nobody was talking about the Elder Scrolls Online when it came out, but we were all aware of it. With the Old Republic, nobody even knows. Nobody even knows that an expansion to the Star Wars MMO that is focused on a story about Revan coming back. Revan, the big fan character from KOTOR 1 and 2 that everybody loves. He's back, and he's in the Star Wars MMO, and nobody
I thought Revan was a girl. Canonically, Revan could be either, but I think most people played her.
I'm pretty sure they declared, like, after KOTOR 2, that I think they made the canon Revan a dude. That's what I've been told. I don't know. But yeah. And it's like that came out and nobody cares, and most people don't even know because nobody's talking about it. And there were commercials for it, there were ads for it and stuff, but nobody paid attention to them because who gives a shit? It's fucking SWOTOR.
It's true. I didn't know. I honestly did not know this was a thing.
Yeah.
And I don't follow a lot of game news. Spoiler, I write about video games. I don't follow a lot of game news. But I figured that I'd have picked up on this if only through the people that I know that sometimes play the Old Republic. I don't know why they do that.
I guess I never told you.
Yeah, I don't know why you play the Old Republic either, but
yeah. Well, no,
you probably have good
Here's
reasons.
the great thing. In the month before the expansion came out, so it was like the month of October / early November, they were doing this thing where if you were subscribed and you had bought the expansion, which I did because my friends did, because I'm the sap, if you do that, you get this bonus thing where like the story quests give you like a shitload of XP, like 10 times the XP or something like that. And basically, the intent was that it gives you enough XP that you don't need to play any of the side quests. So it does this so that if you have characters that you want to play through Revan's story with, you can just plow through the main story with those characters and get to the end.
Oh, that is fun.
There are problems with it. Like you end up with not enough money, which I like. And my friends told me it seems like it's probably intended for characters who have already maxed out their levels to, like, you know, get other characters and, like, twink money to them and stuff. But yeah, I didn't have any other characters. I never reached the level cap in SWOTOR because I don't like the game very much. I just play it with friends. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'll do this, and, like, since I don't have to deal with the stupid, grindy side quests, I can just plow through the main story and get to the end that way. And spoilers, I still didn't make it through. Because that's how freaking tedious SWOTOR is. It's like, even if you, like...
MMOs are.
What most people complained about was that the side quests were really tedious, and it's like the main story stuff is pretty interesting, and it's kind of impressive how they basically wrote 8 different stories, one for each class for each faction, and like they're all BioWare stories, so you get some depth of role playing in them, and you get companions, and it's all 100% voice acted, so it has all that. But everybody says that, like, oh, it's really tedious to just plow through the side quests and stuff because there's so much of it, so much repeated content and all that. So even with the side quests out of the way, it was still too tedious. Because SWOTOR is just a utterly hollow WoW clone.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Actually, I had similar experiences with WoW, the original WoW clone, where you had refer a friend, where you could get a friend into a trial account, and then when you and the friend were playing together, you would earn triple experience. And what me and a friend wanted to do was to make characters called Dora, and then get the title The Explorer, because that is incredibly hilarious, and we have the sense of humor of 5-year-olds. So we would get these trial accounts, and then level the characters up to the maximum level for trial accounts, and then transfer them over to our main accounts, which still costs a little money, but whatever, and then finish it out that way. So we got the trial accounts and we played together, and we got a high level friend to like run us through dungeons, which incredibly boosts you up.
Yeah,
And we were at level 55 in a week. And then we just had to play through Outland and some of Northrend in order to get to level 80 so we could fly everywhere and discover everything. And I got halfway into Outland and then I was just done with it. It's like, this was a fun idea, but I was not prepared for the reality of having to grind goddamn everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a shame. And I hate that is what the MMO scene is, and I don't know how I would fix that. I like MMOs as a concept, where it's like you're playing a game with your friends, and it's just in this persistent world where you get to adventure with your friends or by yourself and whatever. But, like, the reality of it just never, ever works out for me. I think it did when I was a lot younger. I think the highest I got to in WoW was level like 40. When I got my mount. And then after that I got bored. But like the only MMO I've ever reached the level cap with was Guild Wars 2. I think part of that was because of the shared social experience, and because Guild Wars 2 takes some steps to get away from the tedious MMO formula, but it's still the tedious MMO formula.
I think one part of 2014 that I'll remember is basically that 2014 was the year where I figured out I'm tired of grinding. Yeah. And there's a lot of games that don't ask you to grind, and the games that do ask you to grind are weaker for it.
Exactly. It's not because I was saying it pits the like microtransaction-y games pit your patience against your wallet. These games don't even do that. They just pit your patience against the, like, playtime that they can advertise. They make the game longer so that it will feel like you've been on an epic quest. But I'm tired of that. I'm really tired.
I would like to just actually be on the epic quest.
And I don't care if the epic quest isn't very long. This might differ with some people. I know I have a friend who like judges what game he calls game of the year based on like what game he finds himself continually playing over and over, and that's not me. My game of the year almost every year is a game that I'll play through once or twice and have like 10 or 20 hours and then I'm done.
I figured your game of the year would just be Mark of the Ninja every year.
No, Mark of the Ninja was 2012. 2011 was, I think, either Bastion or Deus Ex Human Revolution. I really like those both. 2013 was, like, Gunpoint and Monaco, which, Gunpoint, I played through it a whole bunch of times to see all the directions the dialogue would take. But the reason I did that was because the gameplay isn't super grindy. You can beat Gunpoint in, like, an hour. I think I timed myself. Like my average playtime of Gunpoint is, like, an hour. And that's why 10 playthroughs of it is like 10 hours, and that's like the regular length of a game. But yeah, and then this year I would actually call... I was thinking my game of the year would probably be This War of Mine. And I don't know if you played that one.
I haven't. I actually bought it in the Steam sale.
Oh, cool. It came out just last month, so I think a lot of people... It isn't like... It hasn't been out long enough for people to really wrap their heads around it and be like, this is going to be a thing we remember. But it was... I want to write a whole post on this, but the general gist of it is that I've had this idea in my head for years and years of, like, my dream game. And the idea of it is that it is a game where rather than choices and consequence equaling you get like 3 options in every dialogue thing, and some of those will result in characters doing different things later in the story, but it is all predetermined by a writer or set of writers. In This War of Mine, choice and consequence means that every single little thing that you do in the game results in the characters you're playing with, the small group of characters, reacting in a unique way, and that becoming the narrative that plays forward. The problem with, I remember Unrest sold itself. Unrest came out this year, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I completely forgot about that. But the problem with Unrest saying that the choices you make, that becomes the narrative, is that the narrative is pre-written by a writer, and that means that everything is going to go in a specific direction. And even if you add some layers of branching dialogue and branching narrative paths, it is all extremely predetermined. And so it is never your choices become the narrative. It is you get to choose between several narratives that are written for you. And in this War of Mine, even the tiny choices like choosing who sleeps at night and who is going to go scavenging, who gets to eat because you only have 2 meals for 3 people. Even little things like that will result in your characters having reactions that it will say in their journal, and that becoming part of the grand emergent narrative that is playing out before you every time you're playing the game. That is so beautiful to me, and I think a lot of people wouldn't really care because ultimately the narrative is you're surviving in a war, and either you survive or you don't. But in terms of, like, the little things going on, a certain character that you've been using as, like, the guy who's good at scavenging because he runs fast, he can become depressed, or he can, the food you don't give him results in him starving and him being exhausted and stuff like that. And so you'll need to use another character, but maybe she's not as well fit, and maybe she's been dealing with something harsh because she had to go do a thing and she saw somebody die, and that really affected her. It's about like the physical things that happen to characters, but also the psychological things about how the events affect these characters. And there's a degree of randomization, but it's hard to explain. I'm sure I'm rambling right now.
Yeah, basically, but I'm letting you ramble on because it sounds very interesting. It sounds like a very good game to do maybe like a narrative story, not necessarily a let's play, but
yeah,
just tell the story that happens while it happens.
But it's so beautiful to me because even when I was like 10 years old and all these games I was playing, I was always thinking to myself, like, this is cool, I'm having fun, but wouldn't it be cool if what I was doing had effects on the narrative beyond, like, you killed this character or you didn't? Like, I remember I liked Deus Ex for that, but Deus Ex, it was still, even though it was presented in gameplay, it was still very predetermined. Mm-hmm. With this, it's like, it is just this completely emergent narrative. And also, I love it because I generally like stories that involve a lot of, like, desperate survival and sort of, like... I like a lot of post-apocalyptic stories because of their tendency to have a lot of desolation and just, like, grim sadness. Not grim dark, because that's, like, Warhammer 40k bullshit of, like, let's kill everyone. But more the, like, how are we going to make it in this world and stuff like that. That just appeals to me for some reason.
Actual grimness instead of semi-cool grimness.
Yeah, exactly. And this War of Mine delivers on that really well. It never comes across as, like, melodramatic. It feels really like a sincere thing about war.
I guess I'll be playing it at some point in the future.
Yeah, I hope I didn't build up your expectations too much, because, like, I'm not seeing it get that much praise. Camster mentioned it in his thing. Jim Sterling gave it one of the, like, Jim Sterling awards or whatever, which, whatever. But, like, it's not showing up on a lot of Game of the Year lists, and I think it just sort of passed by with a lot of people. A lot of people don't care very much, but this is like a vision into the dream world of video games that I've had for a long time. So that's just kind of amazing to me.
How did you not give it your Game of the Year then?
Why would I not give it my Game of the Year then? I don't know. I think I give... You know what? I give the official Ninja Blues Ninjustin Award of 2014 to this War of Mine. I'll make a shitty little graphic of it to put on the post, probably.
Can you also make one for me?
Sure. I didn't know if you were going to pick one.
I mean, I have to give... Yeah, I don't like the idea that Game of the Year necessarily means the best, only, most powerful Game of the Year. Yeah, because my Game of the Year just is Divinity Original Sin.
Because
with
it's
all
just
its
the one
lumps.
that was on your mind the most, and the one you were playing the most. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah,
It's not just that it was on my mind the most. It was like both good and bad. It had the most to talk about. The things
Yeah.
it did good, it did really good, and the things it did bad, it did really, really poorly. So it was.
so
I
it just
tried to
ends up
explain this
being-
on Twitter as it's not that the good and the bad cancel each other out. It's that they are almost different spectrums of gameplay experience.
Yeah.
So with other games, I played Lichborn Battle Mage very recently, which was also a 2014 game, or Lichdom Battle Mage, whatever. And that one was reasonably fun but grindy, and those two kind of cancel each other out because it's fun, but then you have to do it over and 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 over, and that just sort of stops the fun until at one point I had one spell combination which just let me freeze time and blow everything up, and the last 3 hours of the game were just a slog through all the enemies that I just blew up over and over and over, etc. You get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
But in Divinity, it's the good parts are freedom and fun and good looks and a very interesting combat system. And then the bad parts are an absolutely atrocious story and a lack of guidance and an unfocused direction to the writing that suggests that there may have been multiple writers and they may have been on different parts of the world. And
Yeah,
I
it
could
kind of
talk
creates
to
this like
extent.
fascinating anomaly of a game that is like I know it. I have a feeling, and I don't mean to speak for all the Dark Souls fans, but yeah, I'm going back to Dark Souls. I kind of feel like that might also be part of why people talk about Dark Souls so much. Is that it's not that the bad parts of it are just make it tedious and whatever. It's like the bad parts are also really unique and like contribute to the game's own like really really just special like flair that it has. Like the player messages thing, I fucking hate it. I think it's stupid, it breaks immersion, and it's there to compensate for another really stupid aspect of the game, which is that traps will come out of nowhere and that you're just expected to have the foreknowledge to deal with it. But it's like that is utterly unique, and it's like I can see why if you're really enjoying Dark Souls and you keep having to deal with this shit, but it's like part of just this weird, like, fascinating anomaly of Dark Souls that's really fun to play through, I can see why you would sort of become attached to it. And you would associate that as like part of this game that you love. And so we have people talking about player messages as if they're a great thing and celebrating it and being like, praise the sun and stuff. Even though, in my humble opinion, it's fucking stupid.
Praising the sun is never stupid.
Oh, okay. Sorry then, everyone. I made a mistake.
Your argument is invalid.
But yeah.
Anyway, let's wrap this up.
Yep, so the Game of the Year awards go to This War of Mine and Divinity Original Sin for the Ninjustin favoritist game and the Jarenth favoritist game.
Most impactful game, if nothing else.
Most impacting game. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I'll also give the most year-defining award to Goat Simulator because it embodies both the simulator game trend and early access perfectly. And the What Did That Game Come Out This Year award to both WildStar and The Elder Scrolls Online. Anyway, let's actually wrap this up. Thank you for listening, everyone, and thank you for reading Ninja Blues in 2014.
Yeah,
We're going to continue doing
it. It was our first year, and I would consider it a success.
Unqualified success.
Yes.
I mean, I could qualify it, but I'm not going to.
Success.
We're going to continue doing what we did in 2014 and 2015, and also some other stuff, which you'll hopefully see news about relatively soon.
Yeah.
But let's not spoil that for now.
You'll see more writing, you'll see more streaming, you'll see video content, and we all have our ideas, and hopefully we'll actually do them this year.
Oh, we will do them this year. That's not a problem. The question is when.
Yes. And how and why. Why exactly?
Because we love our readers. Readers, we love you. See you next time.
Yeah.